Dip. Get. Clap your hands now. Clap your hands now. Clap your hands now.
Alright everybody, I wanted to keep this little video a little bit more organized than the first few that I filmed. So what I want to do today is just kind of talk about the NEX ICO that the information was just released just on Sunday, yesterday. So I was going to get this video out last night. I had planned a few things out, but I ended up hanging out with family and not getting this video done until right now. So what I want to do is I want to present this really briefly. I probably want to keep this video under 5 minutes. I think most people who clicked on this probably already know what NEO is and what NEX is. So I just want to jump right into this and talk about why we might want something like that. So here it is. NEX is a platform for complex, decentralized cryptographic trade and payment service creation. It's a decentralized exchange where it's going to be using the NEO network, NEO blockchain, because we all know, I believe the transactions per second on that are far superior to Ethereum and obviously Bitcoin in speed. So, we talk about the exchanges we have now, like Binance, which grew from nothing to this unbelievable, I don't know how many, 7 million, 8 million users in 6-7 months. It's almost like 1 million users a month. They've had, Binance had to close down. They had too many people. They had this influx of applications coming through, and they had to close down new users from signing up. I think they're all caught up now, but just as an example of when this stuff gets going, Binance was their CEO, CZ, they'd open up applications and they'd open up the registration for like an hour here and an hour there and just let some people come in, then process those requests and then do it again. And they had moments where there was like 100,000, applications in, far less than an hour. It might have been a couple minutes. I don't know the specifics, but just an influx of these new requests, right? So we all love Binance. It's killing it. It's got a great user interface. It's relatively compatible to a new, or easy to use for a beginner or intermediate individual in this space. But it is, at the end of the day, relatively centralized and controlled by the people who own it, and they could turn it down, they could shut it down, they could lock up trades for this, and a lot of that stuff is perhaps a necessary evil if a certain coin isn't, if the interaction between the exchange and the wallet there for a particular coin isn't working fluidly, they do have to suspend trade or withdrawals or whatever and fix that issue. So that's fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, it's still susceptible to, I guess you could say, corruption. Not that Binance is corrupt at all, but there is that. It's also susceptible to things like government mandates. We all probably heard about Coinbase being approached by the IRS. I think it was probably almost a year ago. And then if you look here, we found out that they won. Technically, Coinbase won in court, and out of the 100% of user information that the IRS requested from Coinbase, they only gave a few. We didn't know the exact amounts, but if you can see this article here by Cointelegram, Coinbase informs the 13,000 affected customers of the imminent data handover to the IRS. So there are people who were using Coinbase pretty much before, all this tax, right, and these rules were set in place about, how is crypto going to be taxed, and how, what type of asset is it, and is it a property, is it a currency, is it, so it's kind of sucks that these individuals who might have been on Coinbase for the last 2-3 years, who have done really well, they taught themselves everything, they were one of the, some of the first people in the spot, now they're, there's a lot of accounts, 13,000, with trade volumes over like 20,000, and, a little bit larger accounts, but they're basically finding out of the blue, letters are being sent from Coinbase to these individuals that, hey, look, we do have to listen to the IRS. We do have to hand over the documents, your name, your address, your contact information, and your trade volume. And that's really scary stuff. I mean, of course, everyone should be paying their taxes anyway, but it's just one of those things where, if you have an entity that has all your information, they, and they have to follow the rules of the country with which they reside, then there's no really, this is what happens. This is just what happens. However, if a exchange is decentralized without it being in one country or a few countries, without there being a few people at the top, it's just less likely for these things to happen. And aside from the IRS, aside from the government regulation and stuff like that, when you have a decentralized exchange, there's no way necessarily for that thing to just shut down. Coinbase won't. Coinbase can just turn off. Oh, we're going to suspend trading on this. We're going to turn this off for now. We're going to do maintenance here, and we're going to add a new coin. There's all these things that the few people that are at the top are making these decisions that do affect the users at the end of the day. People talk about how the Bitcoin Cash market, when it was added to Coinbase, there was a couple hiccups here and there might have been some weird insider type trading because the price went crazy before it went live, and then it went live, and then it got turned off. Like Bitcoin Cash, the way that they launched that, it was not very fluid whatsoever, and you'll see that the price went crazy. And I mean, there's so many things that can happen to an exchange when they're just run by a few people or 20 people or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all know these huge exchanges are pretty much controlled by the few at the top. So what we find now is that we have this need for the decentralized exchanges. We have a great high-speed Neo blockchain that could perhaps fill that void, or play that role that we need. We need to have a well-functioning decentralized exchange. You need to have a very high speed or high transaction per second network that it can ride on, or it can reside on, and that's what Neo would be to this exchange. So anyway, we have to go through this metric system here, like we have for the other videos, where we talk about we're gonna assign a grade to the NEX exchange based off of prior historical successful ICOs. That's what these are made up of. And I've made a few changes to this just to kind of, like, for example, with today's market, what I added current market. So basically, I'm giving it a point in the system, in the equation. I'm going to give it a point or no points, depending on if they're set to do well in 2018. And that's totally subjective. It's my opinion that, given the current market, we're favoring infrastructure projects, we're favoring blockchain projects, and we are favoring, decentralized exchanges. I think are going to be huge. And this is not financial advice. So basically, I added a point if it is a blockchain, an infrastructure project, or a decentralized exchange, because of this like ICO winter, this calm period, this sideways horizontal motion through the market. And then we just had some information released recently where we found out that they're going to charge roughly $1 per token, and based off of this system, again, it's just kind of it's not gold. You got to take this up with a grain of salt. Do your own research and kind of form your own opinion. But based off of some of the most successful projects in the past, the best price to get that full 1 point for this section here is 19 to 40 cents. And then you adjust accordingly. And these are going to be $1 each. It's a bit expensive for ICO, at least through the history. So I'm going to give it 0 points for this. Then you have to go through the number of tokens available in the ICO. For this, it's, again, going back, technically 1 point is assigned to those with 62 to 130 million ICO coins being released, right? This, we're going to have 25 million tokens. Total tokens, we're going to have 50 million tokens, right? So we're just going to keep going down this list here. And again, ideally, based off of historical data, blah, 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 1 point would be assigned to those that have 100 to 186 million, roughly, in total eventual circulating supply. NEX is going to have 50 million. So we're going to give it 0.67 there. That's just going down the line a bit. So, and then we found out that 50% of the tokens available that will ever be available for this are going to be available in the ICO. 50%. So ideally, in this case,